Vision. Following clues left by our ancestors, we unbury the past to reveal a knowledge of unfathomable value, putting us just a little closer to our own true birthrights. From the secret history of a possible bloodline of Jesus Christ, to secret history of America's founders, to the secret history of extraterrestrial interaction on our planet, here to bring light to the night. Your host for Night Vision Radio, Renee Barnett.
Hey everyone, welcome to Night Vision. Happy Friday the 13th, by the way. This has been a crazy one. So, hey Bill, are you listening? Bill Skywatcher. Can you join us for a moment?
I was going right into the intro.
Just before we came on the air, Bill jumps on and says, I feel like walking under ladders. I feel like
breaking news.
What about black cats?
Oh,
black cats cross your path?
No. I'm not into the superstition stuff of it.
Not at all.
13, not really.
You know what? I'm not either. Many people though are, and they even refuse to fly on airplanes and that sort of thing. And even when they're building big buildings, oftentimes you won't see a 13th floor, because especially in hotels and things where people would have to stay, because nobody would want to stay on the 13th floor. Really crazy. But, you know, I think just about everybody around the world has probably heard about Friday the 13th and probably knows about it. And if they're not superstitious about it, they at least know about it. But I think not that many people really know where that whole thing started. Why is Friday the 13th superstitious for us? But you know what we need? We need a historian. We need a historian.
But before we get to James,
okay,
I just want to know did somebody get cold feet because it's Friday the 13th? Mr.
I think so. I was going to mention that next.
Mr. Weird.
Absolutely. We are so excited that we've got a new show on KGRA that's going to be starting up the first week of November.
Yes.
I'm already a fan because he's not someone that's unknown by any means. It's a channel called Weird Darkness, a show called Weird Darkness. Many of you probably heard it. I know I had before I recognized his voice when you guys called me on the phone, Bill.
Yes.
And but Darren Marlar is the host. He's an amazing voiceover actor. He's got many awards. He's a speaker.
Very talented.
He is extremely talented. And, you know, of course, I've already warned him, you know, he's going to have to fight us off, because we will definitely take all the help from him that he has offered us. And we really, really appreciate it.
Well, I want to welcome him to the family, because he may be watching or listening right now. And some of his viewers are those that listen to his show. So yes, he'll be here. The reason it was going to start this upcoming week, but I've got a lot of other shows that I'm going to launch all at the same time. So I want to just put it all like a whoosh, all at one time in November, so that everybody gets to be like, wow, what's going on here on KGRA Digital Broadcasting? So
all of a sudden we're exploding.
Yes.
But, you know, Darren was going to be on the show tonight, Bill, as you know, and he certainly planned on it. And we've been speaking throughout the day. But he has a tendency to get migraine headaches, and he had a really bad one today. He worked on it all day. He tried resting, taking his medication and everything. And he said, you know, I really want to come. I offered him, no, you know, you take care of yourself. He goes, no, I'm going to try to make it. But if I just can't, I'll let you know just before showtime. And I said, oh, that's absolutely fine. And
what about next week?
I gained a promise from him to come on next week.
Cool.
So we will have a full hour of Darren and his weird and scary stories. He's going to actually share some personal stories from his life and his dad's life, who had some sort of paranormal experience. And as Darren explains about his own experiences, because of his faith, he puts them more in sort of a religious type category. in the way of, maybe it's not aliens, maybe it's not ghosts, maybe it's demons. So that's a very interesting conversation that we're going to have. And he's going to share some of the most compelling, true, scary stories that he covers on his channel. So looking forward to that.
Does that mean that next week when we're doing the show and I'm in behind the scenes, that I'm going to probably end up having some nightmares after the show?
It could be. Also, I wouldn't be opposed to you providing some extra sound effects next week. Maybe you could just sort of scream every now and then.
Oh my gosh, that's all we need.
Or something.
Darren's going to be like, what did I walk into now with KGRA?
I warned him, so he can't say that. Warned.
Let's bring on the historian.
Darren, get well soon.
Yes, Darren. Feel better.
Better. And we will see you next week. Now we got our wonderful historian, everyone's favorite.
I'll do it.
Martin.
There he is.
Hello, everyone.
Cheers, James.
So it sounds to me like we've got to eat a lot of cheese before we go to bed next week.
I might need some wine in a cup to put me to sleep.
I don't get the cheese reference.
Listen, wine goes very well with cheese, so I'm up for that. Well, when Bill was just saying I'm going to have nightmares. Well, the fail-safe way to have nightmares is to eat cheese before you go to bed. So eat plenty of cheese, and you'll have lovely, vivid nightmares after a few ghost stories.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I'm going to try that.
Now, James, are we going to get schooled on the origins of Friday the 13th? Is that what I'm expecting? And those that are watching and listening?
It could very well be, yes. Why? Lots of superstitions have grown around Friday the 13th. So there's not one common origin point with this, but
I think there's one main one. I would say.
Is it? It's going to be like Halloween with Sam Hain and all that stuff. I mean, I'm really curious to hear that right now.
The only one that I really know about is that, in the year 1307, sort of leading up to Friday, the 13th of October, there were some secret plans going around, documents being shifted here and there, and plans to by King Philip Philip IV, I think it is, or was, to get rid of the Knights Templar. And so it all sort of came to fruition then on Friday the 13th, 1307. Now that's not when, Jacques de Molay, the Grand Master, was burned at the stake. That was like a month or so later.
Quite a few years later, that.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Well, while you guys get into this, you guys get more into depth on this, I'm going to bail out and listen and watch like everybody else.
Okay. Well, thank you, Bill, for joining us. Happy Friday the 13th.
Have a great rest of your show, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, Jacques de Molay dies depending on which calendar you use, the 11th or the 18th of March, 1314.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, that was some time later. So this whole rounding up, did it take that long, or was he just imprisoned that long before they executed him? How did that? Why is the 13th? What's important about that? What happened?
We can talk about the Templars Association with Friday the 13th, but I think we've got to go a little bit further back. So anyone who has listened to me on the show before, you know that I'm writing a sort of trilogy, the before, after, and now of the Knights Templar. So this was just a little bit. Sometimes, Renee, you'll know.
Before the trilogy comes out, right now on sale is Uncharted by Tim Wallace Murphy and James Martin. So if you guys want to read some of James's work prior to the release, which hopefully won't be too terribly long, of the 3 books on the entire history of the Knights Templar, this is going to be a remarkable set of chronicles that James is creating. It will be referred to, I predict, by many a researcher in the future. And I just have to say that, even though I am partial to James, I'm also a very critical reader. And I can tell you, this guy is amazing at following up, doing his research, corroborating the facts. So when you see it there, unless he states it's his opinion, you can pretty much take it to the bank. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, and Ian, you know, as a researcher and, you know, producing your history, when you start to look at something, there's lots of rabbit holes. So you end up in lots of different, you know, strange and wonderful places that sometimes you feel like you're on a bit of a path. Other times you think, oh, well, I now know that. What am I going to do with it? So, yeah, and you know, unfortunately, when you look at history, it also, we love the myth and the rumor and the
romance,
strange things and the romance of history, but sometimes we've got to perhaps also look at some of the other ideas. So Friday the 13th, let's just have a bit of a, before we get on to the Templars, what's going on. So we've got to focus firstly on Western culture. And actually, we've got to look at not the number 13, but look at the number 12. Because historically, since Roman, Greek, even Egyptian times, in the ancient times, the number 12 has been associated with conclusion or completeness or fulfillment. For example, you have 12 days of Christmas, a period once called Saturnalia, a period of lawlessness, but then, you know, we now have the 12 days of Christmas from Christianity. We have 12 signs of the zodiac. We've got, if we go back a little further, you've got the 12 labors of Hercules, the 12 gods of Olympus, the 12 tribes of Israel. I could carry on for quite a while.
12 disciples of Jesus.
I'm going to come on to that in just a second.
Okay, all right. Don't let me get ahead of you. Okay. Sorry.
So 12, you know, look, and we've got for a number of fraternal societies, 12 is an important number. However, unlucky for some and unlucky for the number, okay, is the number 13, because of course, where we have this number of completeness, the next number is suddenly either rebirth or, as I say, just a bit of bad luck. So let's just go back quite some time, because the ancient code of something called Hammurabi, and this is from a Babylonian king, Hammurabi, who reigns from 1792 to 1750 BCE. So much was the strength of this. Well, we have 12 as a completeness. 13 doesn't quite fit. It's somehow not natural, I suppose. That in the code, this is this legal text of this king, the 13th law is omitted. Now, is this because the poor scribe didn't know how to count? That's certainly possible. Is this just a mistake? But it's certainly the beginning of where we can find the long-standing negative associations that we have with the number 13. Triskaidekaphobia actually is the phobia associated with the fear of the number 13, and you know we see it's. I mean, what do you guys call it? Elevators. You know, some floors in hotels and buildings, no 13. Yeah. It you know, interrupts the what they call it, the shui, whatever. Yeah. You know, affects all of that. But I suppose what we've kind of got to look at is then, and I'm going to come on to Christianity in just one second, but If we want to have a look at another pagan society, then you've got the Norse. So, a source actually from one of the Norse sagas talks about the unlucky nature of the number 13. So you've got this Norse myth, 12 gods having a dinner party in Valhalla. However, one god wasn't invited. Any guesses as to which god in the Norse pantheon?
I guess it'd be number 13, whoever it was.
Well, yeah, the god who just irritates me every time I read about him or her, and that's Loki.
Oh, Loki.
The Bart Simpson of the Norse gods. And of course, what Loki could do is shapeshift and change the form and all of this. So he was not invited to this dinner party, but arrives anyway as the 13th guest. And not without getting too far into the story, but he arranged for Hodor to shoot Baldur with a mistletoe-shaped arrow. So we've got some associations with mistletoe, but we can come on to Christmas, at Christmas maybe. But of course, Baldur dies from this arrow. And the saga and the stories then talk about how the earth got dark. The earth began to mourn. It was a bad, this is a quote now, a bad and unlucky day. Oh. And as such, in Norse society and their subsequent invasions and settlements in parts of Western Europe, an already existing suspicion with that number is further promoted. We also can't, I suppose, talk about any of this without looking at, some of the biblical traditions then. Because, of course, how many people are at the Last Supper?
13.
13. We've got the 12 disciples or apostles, including Judas. And you have the 12 disciples and Jesus. We've got 13. And, of course, the next day, somewhat ironically called Good Friday, is the day of Jesus' crucifixion. Mm. So you've got another...
I've seen, the number 13, or read about the number 13 symbolizing Jesus, because it was the 12 disciples plus one, and he was the 13th. Have you ever seen that anywhere in your research?
Not really. Not that I can think of just now, but it's very early in the morning.
For you, it is, yeah. Early in the evening here on the west coast of the United States of America.
But what I wanted to say is the early church, even it seems, prevents or puts an order in to prevent 13 people being present at a dinner table. So, we've already got an association with 13. Mm. And of course, you have just some other things to do with the stars. Of course, this 13th sign of the zodiac relating to ultimate destruction. So there is again just something about this number that we as humans don't like.
A dozen eggs.
Pardon?
Is that why we have a dozen eggs?
Oh, I've no idea. I just assumed it'd look odd in the carton if you had an empty space. Yeah, so, essentially the idea is that if you dine with a 13th person, then you're actually dining with death. Now, the connotation with Friday, as in the day, is probably back to the Christian tradition. Because what we do know is that Jesus was crucified on a Friday. Friday's also rumored to be the day that Eve gave Adam the apple from the tree of knowledge. Yeah. Hmm. And also the day that Cain killed his brother Abel. on a Friday. So if you then start marrying the two, of course, it then begs the question when we get to our fated Knights Templar. Were they at least arrested in France in the early hours of the morning of Friday, the 13th of October, 1307? And today is Friday, the 13th of October. Were they arrested as part of that biblical tradition?
That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if that date was specifically chosen because the plans had been in the works.
Yeah.
And they had to choose a time and a date to implement everything at the same time, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So why did they choose Friday the 13th? Was there a meaning behind it, or did, strangely and synchronistically, it just, because it was a bad day, it just happened that day?
I'm not one for coincidence personally. It's certainly been one of my thoughts that when you look at the day, it doesn't make much sense for me anyway. This, it's in October and you're doing this arrest. It's, what's the purpose of it? And again, just I'm sure we'll go into it in a bit, but the beginning.
Give a little personal anecdote. There was one year, and I guess I could figure it out because it would probably been like 12 years ago or something, on a Friday the 13th in October, whenever the last time it was. I was in France, and I was, in the Aude region near Rennes-le-Château, and looked up over onto, was it Bucharest or was it Peshkardu? I think it was Bucharest. And there were people, you could see torches going up the side of the mountain, a line of people. And there were people dressed all in white, and they were ascending the mountain, in commemoration of the Knights Templar and Friday the 13th. But it was so eerie looking, to see those people making that line, snaking its way up the mountainside, and all those torches. It was just, it really did kind of take you back. And I wonder, I'm sure they still do something like that there. I'm sure there are commemorations still done in certain parts of the Western world.
Maybe. I mean, there's no doubt that by today, Friday the 13th is considered by quite a large number of people as being unlucky. And by a large number of people, they associate it with the date. So just, again, for those who perhaps maybe aren't too sure, or, whatever it is. But how can I put it? The Knights Templar, this order of very intriguing, diverse knights, the sort of monks with a sword kind of idea, that ended up dominating European politics, economics, religion for a couple of centuries, ends up being arrested. The knights, I should say, were arrested on the orders of a French king, Philip IV. Now, you've got to bear in mind a few things just before I continue. Philip IV had arrested the existing pope and had moved that pope into French territory in Avignon. So it's not just, if you sat there thinking, hold on, why is a king in France getting rid of an order that spans Europe? Well, it's because the Pope, pain of death, essentially, was told to issue this mass arrest. Now, it only really occurred in France. Kind of did in England, but no one was really that bothered about it.
But the reason for it was really financial, wasn't it? land and power.
I think we've got there's a few things. Yeah. Okay. One. Philip IV distrusted the Knights Templar. Personally, not too far away from where I live, there is a little town, a little village called Saint-Louis. And it's there that I discovered that Philip IV's dad essentially dies in the south of France, and this little village is named after Philip IV's granddad, the king, I think Louis IX, Saint Louis.
Is that in the Aude region?
Just, yes. It's near what we call the Moorish Castle.
All right, okay.
So it's only just in the Aude department of southern France. And what I found there was intriguing, because it seems that Philip IV was trying to recover something, who knows what, but some deposit or donation from his dad to the Knights Templar. I don't know what it is. We can speculate, but what we do know is after his dad's died, I think it's Narbonne. I'll be happy to be corrected, but I think he's pronounced king. Off he goes up to the north. He goes, well, from the southern French perspective, he goes up back to France. And for anyone listening who knows north-south relations in France, you know what I'm saying there. But back, the king is coronated, and then essentially inherits a kingdom that's broke. There's lots of borrowing from from various orders, but especially the Knights Templar, to support the kingdom. And that time later, by the time you get to 1307, I think there's two things worrying Philip. One, he doesn't like the Templars. He sees them as an army responsible to the Pope that he owes a lot of money to. Yep. But just something that's missed quite a lot in the discussions around the downfall of the Knights Templar is that there were a group of knights in what we would call today northeastern Germany, northern Poland, western Lithuania, Latvia, and these were called the Teutonic Knights. Mm-hmm. Now, these knights, I don't think we've got enough time to go into them, to be fair, but under charters that had been issued by the Pope, and also the Holy Roman Emperor, the Teutonic Knights were established as a sovereign monastic state. So, in other words, you've got knights who are actually running a country, a state. Now, in the southwest of France, there was a large concentration of Templar preceptories, land. In fact, roughly the department of the Pyrenees Oriental, the Western Pyrenees, in other words, the Eastern Pyrenees, in other words, essentially corresponds to the amount of territory, or at least the borders of the territory that the Templars owned. This is vast amounts of land. And remember what I've said before, the difference between the Knights Templar and the Templars.
Right.
Swords, people who work on the land.
Regular folk. Yeah. I was reading up a little earlier, trying to refresh my long forgotten memories. And I saw that, where they were, they rounded up everyone, in the Templar community. But I noticed, at least in the article that I was reading this afternoon, they said they rounded up the men, the stable hands, the, ditch diggers, the, whatever. But they just mentioned men. But did they round up the women? I mean, didn't they have, I know the Templars were not married, but the farmhands were, or were they married?
Well, so
what happened to the women?
Just concluding just my point just a moment ago, Philip IV worried about all this territory. They could set themselves up as a country. And there's a throwaway line in Holy Blood, Holy Grail, which is a throwaway line, but I think in that book, quite a lot of it's nonsense, but a good story, I suppose. But that line is the one that people should dwell on, because I think they were not too far away. Look, when it comes to the rest of the Templars.
What line? I'm sorry.
Oh, there's a line in Holy Blood, Holy Grail, which refers to the Knights Templar wishing to set up their own country.
Ah.
It's just a throwaway line, but for me, one of the most important. As for so the arrest itself is interesting. So we associate really since the Victorian times, 1907. I have actually for the first sort of relationship between Friday the 13th being unlucky and the Knights Templar. So it's a recent thing. It had already been unlucky, I suppose, the Friday and the 13th together. The arrests are issued in writing to be opened in secret, all at the same time, with commands to local garrisons for a mass arrest. What we're really talking about in terms of the arrest, and we're talking about the Templars, is really the retinue. So if you imagine one night, just one night with all of this multi-million pound or multi-million dollar equipment in today's money, the sword, for example, is the equivalent of the tank. Most people in warfare, for example, are fighting with farming equipment. Just have a look at the pike and you can see how it's used to sow and all of the rest of it. A knight's retinue would include something like 10 men-at-arms, and yes, you would have I forget the exact word. I can tell you that the root of the word manager is someone who used to clean out a horse's rear end and feet.
Wow.
But anyway, I'll try not to attack management too much.
This is your other job.
Oh yeah, that is my other job. So you've got stable hands. In other words, you have you might have some falconers, you might have whatever. Now, it seems that there is more of a focus on the knights being arrested than that broader retinue. If you're on a farm and that's owned by the order, and you are, you're working in a vineyard, you're growing crops, whatever it is that you're doing. I have yet to find any conclusive evidence of an arrest.
Really?
So it seems to me as if they were really looking for those of military threat.
Right. So it would have been the knights and the people that assisted the knights in what they were doing.
Now, your question about women is really important, because if I could change the Victorians or correct them on a great many things, that'd take a lifetime. But we refer to Templar commanderies. We need to stop doing that, really, because if you went into a time machine and learn old French or Latin and what have you, they just wouldn't necessarily know what you're on about.
Right.
Okay, what we have is preceptories.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you have the person who runs a preceptory is the preceptor. But we also know that there were preceptrixes.
Mm.
And of course, if anyone knows the Latin, you'll understand the difference. Preceptor is a bloke. Preceptrix is a woman. So we know that, for example, in Campagne-sur-Aude, which was a very small temple holding in the Aude, a sort of daughter house to the very large preceptory of Duzon, that there was a preceptor and a preceptrix. So there were women. Again, can I find any conclusive evidence of women being arrested? No. Were knights married? Well, yeah. In short, of course.
Then why were they known as warrior monks?
Because they couldn't marry while they were monks. There was nothing to stop you getting married, having a family, and then going to live in a monastic lifestyle. So you've got an example of this, just while it's fresh in my head. The town of Coisa, you have a knight called Guillaume de Barry, which roughly translates as William the Neighbor. But he's married. And we know this because he was supporting a Cathar with injuries, and it was his wife who brought him into the house and took after his. And the name of it was either the cousin of, or it was him, someone called Bernard de Saissac, who was brought in to heal and all of that. So, husband and wife. They wouldn't have got married after they became knights or they joined the order, but beforehand, not a problem.
So it's okay then just to leave your family and go become a monk? Was that encouraged?
In the medieval world, do I think it's all right? Knock yourself out. One way to get quiet from the kids.
Child support, I wonder.
Actually, with me, I've given my whole worldly goods to the order. You're getting nothing. But yeah, medieval world, it sort of ran like this. Your firstborn's your successor. And unfortunately, I've got to say this is, men. Not unless all the men have died, do you end up with an heiress.
Yeah,
but the idea is you end up with your firstborn being your successor, the second one goes to the church, and the third is spare parts. Often ignored, by the way. And if you have a look in history, if you ever see any of the kids who inherit a kingdom or anything else, and it's the third born, they're a nightmare. They're the people that you really, really don't want because they've just been ignored.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's the idea. So you end up with the second born going over to the church, because medieval society was just structured like this. You had the noblesse, you had the nobles and the aristocracy who were there to fight, and to protect the other two bits, the church, who were there to pray and to, make sure the people who were fighting for you heal and win. And then you've got the workers who are there to provide the food and provide for the other two. And that certainly was exploited quite a bit. So that's the way the medieval mind thinks as well. It's not, I know we might think, oh, that doesn't sound right. But for them, that was the world. Suggesting that there's something wrong with it would be a bit like saying, I have an argument with the concept of clouds. It'd be just really obscure.
I often argue with clouds, so I totally get that.
Me too, especially when they start crying on you. It's just like you want to give them a hug, but you can't. Too far away, too distant, and that's part of the problem, I think, for the emotional nature of clouds. They keep crying on you because they're too distant, and and then once you're ready to embrace their tears, they go away, and this big bright thing turns up in its place.
It's impossible.
And being from Britain, I've heard about something called the sun.
Yeah.
But I've yet to experience it fully.
Well, that's what you get when you're in France. you get sometimes too much of it these days.
Yeah.
What a demarcation you got there.
Certainly do. Well, you got to know, sorry, listeners, but I come with a pre-installed T-shirt. You don't want to see the white milk-like body that I have.
That's fine, because I'm just solid white everywhere, so it doesn't really matter. You were mentioning Campania, and this is sort of not in the program, but every time I think of Campania Sur Aude, I think about our friends who live there in that village, Jill and Trev, and particularly Jill, who's done some amazing work there in the church in restoring the interior of the church and some of the statues, and not just there, but in particular in the church in their home village. And she's done just incredible work there. It's just beautiful. She was able to match the original, where there was some sort of blemish or something that had gotten damaged. She was able to make it look like the original. It's really cool. And I had been thinking about her a lot recently, because she knows I've got like this bee thing, and a thing for bees, which of course could lead back to the whole Merovingian bees and the bees that were sewn to the cloak of Napoleon and all these other, you see bees and a lot of references to bees around France. Anyway, so I was thinking I would be a bee this year for Halloween. Are you going to dress up?
I think I'm frightening enough. I was just thinking of putting a candle on my tongue and see how far I'd go.
Yeah. Anyway, I wanted to show this little picture that Jill did for me. She's a beautiful artist, and she knows about my bee fetish, and I just love this, and I'd like to get more. Anyway, I should have put a banner up, but her name's Jill Bladen, so look for her on Facebook. Gill Bladen, Bladen, and she has lots of wonderful things. She's got paintings. She's got pieces of furniture that are just restored to an amazing level. Other works of art, original works of art. And I just did a commercial for Jill.
I was just going to say two things took from that. Firstly, hi, Jill. Secondly, warning may contain product placements. And I suppose thirdly now, do we, bee fetish, do we have to call you Honey from now on?
Oh, well, I wouldn't mind.
If it's Halloween, you should, if you want to dress up as a bee, perhaps go as like most of the bee population, go as a dead bee.
Oh, that's not very nice. I'm going to go as a
Halloween and everything. And there are some correlations.
Bee on my phone case. I've got bees. I've got a bee on my computer. I've got bees everywhere. I don't like bees, though. When they land on me, they sting. But once they sting you, they're a goner.
Yeah, that's why they tend not to sting. Wasps, on the other hand, are evil. I've confirmed. But yeah, there might be some correlations between the bee and the fleur de lis also. A bit of a evolution.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what I want you just to, how time flies and all of that, or how time buzzes around. Anyway. God. Not everything's black and white. Sometimes it's black and yellow. There you go.
Exactly.
Start a suite of reasonable adjustments for you, Renee, and make sure that would be related.
It's not a non sequitur, but you reminded me of Jill when you were talking about Campania, because, of course, she lives, very nearby. the church there, and it's such an amazing. I would recommend, if you get down to that area, that's one of the places you really can't miss. You really need to go by because it is a Templar structure, and it's really amazing. It's really beautiful inside, and it's got it's round, and in the back there's a gateway that winds around into the church where the knights would ride their horses in. Very, very cool. I mean, you go there and you feel like you're right back in the 1300s.
So yeah, and a lot of the church has been remodeled. I mean, I would also say there were Templar sites all over Europe.
Yes.
And just to sort of bring us really back. So, all right, the arrests began on Friday the 13th, but not everyone was arrested.
Right.
In fact, quite a lot of the knights got away. There's a particular group that I've been following from the south of France who went over into Spain, where the knights weren't even slightly touched. Apart from a change of name, they essentially became the Order of Montesa or Montesa. They literally changed the name. In fact, you have even in Portugal, you have a change of name, and that's it. Please don't be sat thinking, oh, well, when you say change of name, it must be something new. No, they just carried on under a different name, Order of Christ, and you've got Henry the Navigator, with very interesting, he's certainly one of the more interesting people in history, Prince Henry the Navigator, and all of this. He becomes the what's the word I'm looking for? He becomes the sort of patron for this new sort of temple, or the existing temple order, the Order of Christ. And the big question that we've all got: what happened to the rest? Now, that's subject to a book, but certainly there must have been people tipping off that there's something coming. And again, was this a preemptive strike? I think it was in 1304-5 that the Pope had suggested merging the Hospitaller with the Templars. Now, if you imagine just how much power that entity would have wielded, I think that suggestion was the Pope doing his best to keep away the French king. But we can't just talk about Friday the 13th and Knights Templar without some of the things that then get associated with it. And of course, what I'm referring to is the curse.
The curse.
The curse. So some of you might be familiar with someone called Jacques de Molay. So he's one of the people who are arrested. So what the grounds for the arrest was not because, if I can arrest the person who's given me money and kill them, I then don't have to owe them anything. It wasn't that. Let me just say this: when Philip IV issues the arrest warrant, orders are sent around France. Open this in the morning of Friday the 13th. It is a conspiracy in this way. Everybody knows in Europe. Everybody knows. All of the kings, anyone who's anyone, knows exactly what the French king's up to. But he didn't. He wasn't honest. He didn't say, "I'm arresting you because I can." And I've got you. I've got your manager. I've got the Pope. Arrested. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
What he does is he puts charges justifying the arrest. So he says that there was spitting on the cross when members of the order were initiated. Now, just bear in mind, we're not talking about the farmers who were working for the Templars. What are they initiated to? They're not knights, okay? So it's probably the justification as to why they weren't arrested. Or maybe some were, but there's, again, nothing I can find. The second was the stripping of men naked and then kissing thrice that man by the preceptor on the navel, the posterior, and the mouth. Now, not being funny, it's sounding like a good club for me so far. Not a problem. Maybe the first one about spitting on the cross, maybe not, but certainly the second one. The third is telling what's called a neophyte, or it translates literally to the word novice, that unnatural lust was lawful and indulged in commonly. Now, let's translate that into homosexuality.
Right.
All right. So far, 2 out of 3 is not bad, is it? So anyway, the fourth was that the novice, the person who's been initiated, had to wear a sort of rope around the neck with an idol in the form of a human head with one of the big birds. Now, there's been lots of discussion as to who that is. Is this Baphomet? Is this John the Baptist? Who are we talking about? A bit of unusual jewellery. So, all right, 2 out of the 4 so far. And the fifth was, God forbid, that priests of the order should not consecrate the host when celebrating Mass.
Oh, my gosh.
So the orders were, that because of this, then of course all of the possessions of the Knights Templar were to be confiscated, not given to the hospital, but to be incorporated, including their wealth, into the royal treasury and all of the rest of it. Now, I'm not going to go into Guillaume de Nogaret, who was the Chancellor. We've already done that on a previous show. Mm-hmm. So listen, if you want to listen to that, just type in Knights Templar or Night Vision on KGRA and you can listen to the archives there, that kind of stuff. But
if you're a Templar buff, I think currently we have 4 shows that are clearly marked as Knights Templar as part of the subject matter or all the subject matter. And then this one, I guess, will be number 5 that will have an easily discernible title that if you're into the Knights Templars, I know a lot of people are, that's where you can get it, right on kgradb.com.
So, yeah, just to sort of conclude, there is perhaps some evidence. Excuse me 1 second.
Oh, my goodness. Don't you start. I'm getting ready to go. I'm getting ready to do that.
It's the curse. But yes, there's some evidence perhaps on the 14th of September that people were tipped off. But like I say, in the morning, 13th, there's mass arrests up and down France. Not everyone, maybe about a third of the knights are arrested. Those who are arrested include Guillaume de Nogaret, not Guillaume de Nogaret, Jacques de Molay and Geoffroy de Charnay. They are tortured, let's be really clear, in some of the most brutal, even by the standards of the time, ways. I don't think, given the state of the world at the minute, and the fact that I know that torture still goes on today, but that we dwell on that. But they were interrogated. The leaders of the order, other knights resisted, accepting the charges. Some did, but under extreme torture. You have to bear in mind, in the medieval world, evidence obtained under torture wasn't permissible, just as it isn't today, in theory.
Yeah, a lot of the knights did admit to a lot of these bizarre practices and things, but then when there was an intercession and things were sort of the tide started turning, they denounced, those admissions, and then,
So
only admitted to those things because they were.
If you've got flames held to your feet,
I'll tell you anything you want to know.
Same, absolutely the same. But eventually, what begins to happen is after several years in prison, Alain de Mergue, who is a prominent French historian on the topic of the Knights Templar, suggests 11th of March 1314. It's been suggested it's the 18th. That could be a later change in calendar. Ultimately, Jacques de Molay is burnt alive. The apparent curse goes like this: that Philip IV, would be dead within a year alongside the Pope, and that each of Philip IV's descendants will be cursed until they are no longer the kings of France. And of course, just to conclude my comments on the show, just generally goes like this. When Louis XVI is beheaded, it is said someone shouts from the crowd, "Jacques de Molay, thou art avenged."
All right. That's a good place to end, and it's time for us to go. But before we do, I want to remind everyone to sign up for our mailing list. We have a newsletter that goes out every month with some interesting articles, and you can see what we've got going on, what's coming down the road for us. And even better, sign up as a member. But signing up to the mailing list is 100% free. So I hope you'll do that, and you'll receive the mailing list and any other information that we have coming out about what's going on at KGRA. Thank everybody for joining us tonight. Thank you, James, particularly for once again getting up at an ungodly hour to regale us with your wisdom and knowledge about the Knights Templar and history in general. Really appreciate it.
Anytime.
All right. Don't forget to join us next week when we've got Darren Marlar from Weird Darkness. We're going to get him. We're going to get him on next week. Take care, everyone. Good night, Bill.
Bye.